Hello, Bruce here again. Some time ago I posted a video on my YouTube channel that was titled Digging Through Treasures, Selecting Upcoming Projects. And what we did was look through several boxes of accumulated pieces of rolling stock that I had picked up over the years. And I looked through them and selected at the end 12 pieces of rolling stock that I said I would upgrade and get rolling on the layout by the end of the summer. And this is the first of the follow-up videos, and I thought I would do this in a few segments and probably at the end of this video have 4 of those 12 pieces of rolling stock upgraded and ready for the layout. Among those 12, if you recall, if you did see that video, were 3 HO scale log cars that were in various states of, let's see if you can see that, yeah, various states of completeness, I'll call it, and suitability for getting on the layout. One of them had trucks, wheel sets, and couplers, and one of them had couplers but no wheel sets, and one of them had no wheel sets and 2 broken couplers. And so what I've done so far is disassembled everything down to the base, taken the couplers out, scrub these things very good. These are metal, with a toothbrush and some soapy water, and rinsed them off with hot water and let them dry. So that's the state of the cars themselves, and we'll get back to those later. But right now I want to talk about the wheel sets that were on the one car and what I intend to do on the rest of the cars. Because of the time period that I model, arch bar trucks are appropriate, and that's indeed what was on the one car that did have wheel sets. If from left to right here, this is the wheel set that was on the car. Unknown maker, I don't know. They were in pretty rough shape, but cleaned up very nicely with soap and water. The wheel sets, as far as I'm concerned, are going to be tossed. The wheels themselves are plastic, and the metal axles are all rusty, and the wheels are full of crud. So these are going to get tossed. I'm not even going to try to clean those up. And I've put a new set of a pair of wheel sets in here. So this is one of 2 that's going to go back on the car that it was on originally. This is an example of a very nice Walthers arch bar set, sprung with wheel springs, metal wheels, really a dandy model. It's in their Proto series, and it's part number 920-2005. And you know, it's diamond arch bar spring trucks, 33-inch metal wheels, metal axles. That pair was on sale, and I paid, I think, $8.99 for one pair. And I think they were worth the money, but I am not going to use that on this application. Over here on the far right, you see a Tichy arch bar wheel set that comes unassembled. And the details on it are quite nice. Guess I'm not going to be able to get it any closer than that. So, you know, the details are very nice on it. It does require assembly. And when you get done, you have a very stable wheel set. And if you follow their instructions, and I'm going to go over a little bit about some tips on assembling those next. But to show you why I'm going that route, here's the Tichy box. And let me make sure that you can see it. So as you can see, the arch bar trucks, 10 pair unassembled, $14.50 for 10 pair. Now I think Tichy just announced a slight increase on all their products, so when you go looking for it, it might be more than $14.50. But if you think about it, so one pair would be $1.45, and I paid about $9 for the Walthers one. Assembly on these is fairly straightforward, and let me just go through that with you. I'll get these out of the way right now. This wheel set right here is got metal wheels on it and is ready to get mounted. But let me get that out of the way. This one goes in the box for assembly, and this one will get put back in the Walthers package to be saved for another project. The Tichy wheel sets come, trucks come one truck per sprue. So when you look at that package there are 10 actual castings that will form the truck. The side frames, the bolster, these are brakes, this is what's called a springboard, and 1, 2, 3, 4 tiny journal box covers. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, the only ones that I've seen that have any flash on them are usually the bolster, like you can see over here, there's some flash, and the side frames themselves up in these corners. Very thin amounts of flash, very easily removed. And of course, that's going to be step one. Cut one piece of this off the sprue at a time, clean up any flash, set it aside. So let's just talk about the tools that you're going to need. This is just a sprue cutter, which comes in handy. I used a flat but pointed file to clean up any flash after I remove most of it with a number 11 blade in a hobby knife. And the only thing that really needs tweezers are picking up those 4 journal box covers. And yes, indeed, thus far, one of them flew off into the nether world, never to be seen again, because I'm working on gray carpet and these little gray things just disappeared in it. But other than that, it's been going well. And then this is the tool I use to apply ACC, super glue, to the model, which is the glue of choice in assembling these things. And I use both the liquid form and the gel form in the assembly. So that's the tools. And I think what I'm going to do right now, the super glue, and I've talked about this before, the super glue that I use is by Loctite. And this is their liquid, and this one is their gel. And I really like the product and will probably stick with it. It's readily available in hardware stores, even auto parts stores and so forth, plus online. All right, let me back this out a little bit so you get a wider view of the work table. And we'll just talk about the assembly of these parts. All right, we said that there are 10 parts on the sprue. And yeah, indeed, the first thing you do is remove each one. I'm not going to do that now because I have all of my wheel sets already cut out and so forth. But the easy way to get that flash is to just take your number 11 blade, run it along the supports there until you get to the edge, and the other one, and then finally cut it out. And now that's gone, and I'll just take my little file and very quickly tidy up whatever's left. And I do that, and I don't know, it takes maybe 4 or 5 minutes to get these all prepped for gluing. So that's those 10 parts. The other parts are nylon bushings, or actually bearings they call them, that come 4 on each of these parts of the sprue, and they're hollow where the tip of the axle of the wheel set is going to go, so that each of those is going to fit into that. These you cut off, take off any little flash that's down around the base, and you're going to insert those into the backs of the side frames. And you can see, I think, the holes that are there. So yeah, that's probably another example of where you want to use your tweezers. And you just insert it into the hole, push it down a little bit with this, and then I seat them. You want to get them seated all the way to the bottom. This is just a bamboo skewer, and I just push it down firmly until they seat, and that's it. And that would be really the second step after you remove all the flash. No glue involved, you just press fit those in. The third step is to take those little journal box covers and glue those in place. And here on this example, let me get my big fingers out of the way and maybe put it on a white background. And make sure that it's in the view. Okay, so in this one the journal boxes are already got their covers glued in place, and that is a job for tweezers. And all I do is put a little puddle of super glue on a piece of wax paper, pick a little bit up with my applicator, which is just a regular sewing pin with the head cut off in an old almost throwaway pin vise that I had. And when you get a buildup of the super glue or dried on there, you just take your razor blade and clean it off, and you're ready to go. So I pick up a little dab out of the puddle, and I put it into the recess of the journal box where the cover's going to go. Pick up that cover with my tweezers, put it in place, press it down, and move on. That's the only fiddly thing in the whole construction of these. So once they're glued in place, I set the 2 side frames aside, and next thing I do is work on the springboard with the brake pads. And the springboard has slots on each side that the brake pads will fit into nice and firmly. And the only thing is, when gluing it, is that when you push it in place, it extends below the bottom of this piece of plastic, this springboard. And so I found the easy way to do that is I took a piece of balsa wood just a little bit thinner so that would keep them suspended. And I take some of that liquid ACC, one side at a time, just run it in that slot, pick up the brake assembly with my tweezers, put it in place, put it on this board so it's not touching the bottom, and press it down. Done. Okay, it self-aligns, and when you press it down, it becomes perpendicular to the springboard, and you're all set. Do the same thing on the other side. You can glue them on backwards because the outside has detail molded in, the inside is dead flat, so you want to make sure when you glue them in place that you have the flat sides inward, facing each other. And you just let that dry, set it aside. Those you don't need until after the trucks are actually screwed onto the car. It's the last thing you press in place. They snap in place, they are not glued. And the reason they're not glued is you need to be able to pry them out to get to the screw if you want to take the trucks off. And then the final thing that you do is you glue the bolster to the 2 side frames. You know, and I looked online when I was thinking of getting these to see what people were saying, and there were some concerns about how, I guess I'll say, secure these trucks become. Are they going to stand up to use and so forth? And I think if you use a decent ACC and follow the instructions, you're going to get a fine set of trucks. I mean, there are thousands and thousands of these trucks in use on layouts all over the place. So, certainly they stand up to use. Now, up to this point, I've used liquid ACC for anything I've done, and this is the one application now where I use the gel. And what I do is, and also one of the few times I apply glue right from the applicator instead of putting it on a piece of wax paper first. On the rear of the side frames, there's a recessed area where the bolster goes. And I certainly urge everybody to always test fit everything dry first, just to see that everything works. Because if there's any flash on this that you didn't get off, and you find out that it won't seat all the way in, you don't want that to happen after you have the glue in there. So, just test fit everything to make sure that they go into the proper area. And once you see that they indeed do, whoops, and mine do, even though this one seems to be fighting me here at the moment, then you put your glue in, and here's how I get them lined up. Because you can glue them so that they're cocked at an angle if you don't have it seated right. You could get them twisted up so they're out of plane, so that they're torqued. But if you will notice, I am building them on this pad that's marked off in half-inch squares. And lo and behold, when you get these in place, you will find out, well, let me get one that's already glued. You will find out that one side frame is going dead center down one of these lines, and the other one is going dead center down 2 lines over. And therefore, as I glue it, and by pressing it down like this when it's drying, you're ensuring that they're not going to torque out of plane, P-L-A-N-E. You're not going to get a twist to the trucks. So you just put one side in, hold it in place until the glue sets a little bit. Do the other side, put the glue into that little pocket in the side frame, insert it, push them together, bring it over this thing, and if you look at a square, right, a box of 1, 2, 3, 4 of these, one side frame is going down here, one side frame is going down there, the bolster is going right over there, and the hole for the screw is centered right there. It just makes it so that you can get everything lined up, and you keep pressure on it for a minute and you're good to go. Set it aside. Let that cure very good before you do the next step, which is painting. And what I've done to somewhat, I guess, over-construct these things is after they dried with the gel glue, I came back with the liquid glue and went around all 4 sides of the bolster again, where it goes into the side frame with the liquid, and just add a little more. The result is a very, very stable truck. So that's it for now. I'll come back with another part on these log trucks when I'm assembling putting the trucks on and putting on the couplers and getting ready to put on the load. So that's all for now. I do have to paint these trucks now that they're all assembled, and what I'm going to do there is probably use a rattle can of black paint. I have some other models that I want to paint at the same time, and then maybe come back with a brush and hit them with the Micro Lux grimy black that I've come to like. All right, that's it for now. I'll be back in touch. Well, another of the 12 cars that we had looked at a while back to somewhat renovate during the summer was this Missouri Pacific Lines boxcar, which was in fairly good shape. I mean, it needs a washing. Couplers are missing on both sides. and I would put metal wheel sets on it, wash it up good, but then I noticed that the weight in the bottom is rusty, and although it's really not seen, it's one of those things that I don't want to have running around my layout like that. So I am going to quickly disassemble this so I can get that weight out, sand off the rust, and then give it a quick spray of rattle can black, preventing any more rusting and so forth, and then reassemble it. So let's proceed. It's caught my eye because in a string of boxcars it's always nice to have a little color and not have them all be oxide red. So yeah, it's the aesthetics of the thing, I guess, that caught me. Let's zoom out a little bit and disassemble it. These are the easiest cars to work on, as long as nobody applied any glue, and most people didn't. They just snapped it together and held it with the screws on the trucks. Okay, there's one truck off. Second truck off. Now we should be able to pry the underframe off of here. They say it's really not all that common to find them glued down. For the most part, they're just snapped in place here. Okay, that's off, and there's the weight. This now can get a good washing, which I will do with a toothbrush and some soap and water. And you can see, how rusty this is. So I'm going to get to work on that. Get rid of this nice white paper because I don't want to get it full of rust. But the easiest way to handle this is to rub it back and forth on what I grew up calling emery cloth. Nowadays it's called wet dry paper or automotive sandpaper. It'll always be emery cloth to me, after probably the first brand of it made by Emery. But you can see the rust coming off here. Comes off fairly easy. This is 320 grit. Start with that and then move down to 600 grit, and it'll be all ready for painting. Here you don't care whether you see any marks on this because it's going to be covered with paint, and then on the bottom of the car anyway. And I would imagine many people would just have left the rust. But years ago when I lived in New Jersey, there was a hobby shop that at one point in time had a flood in their basement. I guess it was a broken pipe, and all their storage of kits was down there, the ones they didn't have up on the shelf upstairs, and they forgot about them. They put them in the back shelf someplace, and when they were getting ready to close, they started bringing them up a little at a time, and all the boxes were ruined, and they were selling them for a song, and I bought a bunch of them. And the only things that were rusted were the axles on the wheels and these weights. The wheel sets I always was replacing with metal ones anyway, and these weights I did just what you see me doing here. Alright, come back with a little 600 to finish it up. These are two things that are always on my modeling bench. The 320 grit wet dry and the 600 grit wet dry. Okay, it's ready for the rattle can. I'll paint those at the same time that I paint the Tichy arch bar trucks that we talked about. Alright, now let me just get rid of this into the waste paper basket here.